बिहारी जय गोपी जन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी जय गोपी जन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी यशोदनंदन प्रजजन रंजन यशोदनंदन प्रजजन रंजन यमुनतीरा वनचारी यमुनतीरा वनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा शील प्रभुपदा जय गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा जय विश्वपाल परमहंस परिव्याख्या स्तोत्र सदा श्रीमती श्रीरंग श्री भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। इस्कॉन संस्थापक आचार्य श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। जय विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्याख्या स्तोत्र सदा श्रीमद भक्तिवेदांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी महाराज प्रभुपाद की जय। जय विश्वपाल लकुर किशोरदास स्वामी महाराज की जय। जय विश्वपाल सच्चानंद श्री भक्तिनाथ ठाकुर की जय। जय विष्णुपाद श्री जय वैष्णव धर्म श्री जगन्नाथ दास महाराज की जय। जय श्री रूप सनातन भट्ट रघुनाथ श्री जीव गोपाल भट्टदास अविनाश गोस्वामी प्रभु की जय। नमाचार्य श्रीदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से गौर कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रबोध ज्ञान दास दादर शांति गौर भक्तवृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरिवर्धन की जय। श्री श्री राधा श्री जगन्नाथ बलदेव सुभद्र में दर्शन भगवान की जय। श्री मायापुर धाम की जय। श्री वृंदावन धाम की जय। कंकमई की जय। यमुनामई की जय। भक्ति देव की जय। तुलसी देवी की जय। अंत कोटि वैष्णव की जय। श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। इस्कॉन वर्तमान गुरुवंद की जय। समावेद भक्तवृंद जय। गौरव प्रेमानंद देव हरि हरि बोल। All glories to the assembled bodies, all glories to the assembled bodies, all glories to the assembled bodies, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So welcome you all to this Tuesday morning Srimad Bhagavatam class. Today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 15, Text 26. Tat Vishva Guru Adikritam Bhuvanaika Vandyam Divyam Vichitra Vibhudagra Vimana Shochihi Apu Paramul Mudam Apurvamupitya Yoga Maya Balena Munayas Tad Ato Vikuntam Tat Vishva Gurpadikritam Bhuvanaika Vandyam Divyam Vichitra Vibhudagra Vimana Shochihi Apu Param Mudam Apurvam Upetya Yoga Maya Balena Munayastad Ato Vikuntam Tad Vishva Gurpadikritam Bhuvanaika Vandyam Divyam Vichitra Vibhudagra Vimana Shochihi Apu Param Mudam Apurvamupetya Yoga Maya Balena Munayastad Ato Vikuntam. Translation Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thus the great sages Sanaka, Sanatana, Sanandana and Sanat Kumara, upon reaching the above mentioned Vaikuntha in the spiritual world, by dint of their mystic yoga performance, perceived unprecedented happiness. They found that the spiritual sky was illuminated by highly decorated airplanes piloted by the best devotees of Vaikuntha and was predominated by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Papa Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is one without a second. He is above everyone. No one is equal to him, nor is anyone greater than him. Therefore, he is described here as Vishwaguru. He is the prime living entity of the entire material and spiritual creation, and he is Bhuvanaika Vandyam, the only worshipable personality in the three worlds. The airplanes in the spiritual sky are self-illuminated and are piloted by great devotees of the Lord. In other words, in the Vaikuntha planets, there is no scarcity of the things which are available in the material world. They are available, but they are more valuable because they are spiritual and therefore eternal and blissful. The sages felt an unprecedented happiness because Vaikuntha was not predominated by an ordinary man. The Vaikuntha planets are predominated by expansions of Krishna, who are differently named as Madhusudana, Madhava, Narayana, Pradyumna, etc. These transcendental planets are worshipable because the personality of Godhead personally rules them. It is said here that the sages reached the transcendental spiritual sky by dint of their mystic power. That is the perfection of the yoga system. The breathing exercises and disciplines to keep health in proper order are not the ultimate goals of yoga perfection. The yoga system, as generally understood, is Ashtanga Yoga or Siddhi, eightfold perfection in yoga. By dint of perfection in yoga, one can become lighter than the lightest and heavier than the heaviest. One can go wherever he likes and can achieve opulences as he likes. There are 8 such perfections. The rishis, the 4 Kumaras, reach Vaikuntha by becoming lighter than the lightest and thus passing over the space of the material world. Modern mechanical space vehicles are unsuccessful because they cannot go to the highest region of this material creation, and they certainly cannot enter the spiritual sky. But by perfection of the yoga system, one not only can travel through material space, but can surpass material space and enter the spiritual sky. We learned this fact from an incident concerning Durvasa Muni and Ambrish Maharaj. It is understood that in 1 year, Durvasa Muni traveled everywhere and went into a spiritual sky to meet the Supreme Personality of Godhead Narayana. By present standards, scientists calculate that if one could travel at the speed of light, it would take 40,000 years to reach the highest planet of this material world. But the yoga system can carry one without limitation or difficulty. The word Yogamaya is used in this verse, Yogamaya Balena Vikuntam. The transcendental happiness exhibited in the spiritual world and all of the spiritual manifestations that are there are made possible by the influence of Yogamaya, the internal potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Om Jnana Timirandasya Dhananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yudapatakamalham Shri Guru Vaishnavam Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sargana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sjivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sarvanalanta Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Ye Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Bhupesha Bhupika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostude Taptakanchana Kaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kapasindubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Muham Karadivacharam Pankam Nage Degram Yakpada Muhammad Deshigram Anam Parmanda Manda Shri Chaitanya Vishwam. Just give me 1 second. 1 second. So here it is mentioned that, sorry, I switched on the light. Did it make it dark? Hare Krishna Prabhu.
All good, Prabhuji, all good.
Okay. So it is mentioned here as to how the spiritual sky, the 4 Kumaras, reach the spiritual sky by by the power of mystic yoga. So these 4 Kumaras, Sanaka, Sanatana, Sanandana, and Sanat Kumara, they went up to the Vaikuntha planet and they experienced a lot of unprecedented happiness. And this Vaikuntha planets, it is mentioned, are this thing having a lot of decorated airplanes which are piloted by the great devotees of the Lord. And the reason here is given in the purport. Srila Prabhupada mentions that the spiritual sky was predominated by the Supreme Lord. He is the supreme predominator of all that is there in this material creation and of all the spiritual manifestation. So just like everything in the material creation has a leader, like a kingdom has a king, the politicians have a leader, the husband is the head of the family, a CEO or a president may be the head of a company. So like that, a leader which is required for everything, and the Krishna, Supreme Lord Krishna, is the leader for all the entire material creation as well as the spiritual manifestation. And Lord Brahma himself praised the Brahma Samhita Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadiradir Govinda Sarvakarna Karnam. So Krishna, who is known as Govinda, is the supreme Godhead. He has an eternal, blissful spiritual body. He is the origin of all and he has no other origin, and he is the prime cause of all causes. So the Lord, Supreme Lord, is the leader for each and every living entity. Brahma also says in Brahma Samhita, Advaitam Achyudam Anadim Anandarupam. That means the Supreme Lord is one without a second. And he is the original person, and he always appears as an ever-fresh, blooming youth. The next point that is mentioned in the purport is that he is above everyone. No one is equal to or greater than him. I mean, people worship so many demigods and so many living entities and all. But ultimately, he is the only worshipable personality and no one is equal to him. And that is the reason the Supreme Lord is described here as Vishwa Guru. Vishwa Guru means universe, the Guru of the universal Guru. He is the Guru of the entire universe. He is also the prime living entity of the entire material and spiritual material creation and spiritual manifestation. Which he is the original living entity. He is the original personality of Godhead. And we are all emanating from him. And in the material world, Srila Prabhupada often quotes, we are all imitations of or perverted reflections of what is existing in the spiritual world. But he is the enjoyer and he is the predominator of all that is there. And also, there are living entities in all the planetary systems in the material world. And many times, Srila Prabhupada has quoted that there are living entities in moon also, and one can reach even the moon planet by the dint of the yogic process. The next important point that is mentioned here is that the airplanes in the spiritual sky are self-illuminated. They are all spiritual and are piloted by the great devotees of the Lord. In the material world, sometimes in the night we might see, when the sky is bright, we might see an airplane with a lot of lights and all, but then it vanishes in no time. But the airplanes in the spiritual sky are self-illuminated. They don't need any electricity or any artificial thing to illuminate themselves. They are all spiritual in nature. I'll come to this point. And they're all piloted by the great devotees of the Lord. Now, everything that is there in the spiritual world, they are all spiritual in nature, and everything is conscious, and everyone wants to serve the Lord in the best way possible. That means even an airplane is a living entity who has taken that particular body to serve the Lord for the satisfaction of the Lord. And the passengers or there are pilots, they are all great devotees of the Lord. And everyone and everything is conscious. So even the plane is conscious and want to serve the Lord in the best way possible. And Srila Prabhupada often also quotes that whatever we see is a perverted reflection of what is existing in the spiritual world. So the airplanes are already there. So there is nothing big that we see here when we see an aircraft or a jet flying. And the other thing is that there is no fuel required in these airplanes. But the only thing is we have very limited knowledge. So our understanding is limited to whatever we see and whatever we hear. But scriptures give a lot of information on the various types of airplanes that are there in the higher planetary system. It is said that Dhruva Maharaj traveled in an airplane to Dhruvaloka. It is said that the demigods have airplanes that run on mantras. Kardamuni also traveled all over the universe in an airplane which he created by this mystic power. We'll come to this pastime a little later. Brahma also praised Mantastu Kodisada Vatsara Sampargamyo Vayu Rathaki Mansomani Pangavana. There are airplanes that can travel with the speed of mind, and there are different airplanes and they have got different speeds. And the airplanes in the Vaikunthas, they don't make such sounds like the jets they make here. And the material plane, these aircrafts may not be safe. I mean, accidents can happen anytime, and it has happened. So many have happened, and many can fall down or crash or whatever happens. But in the spiritual sky, they are all spiritual, and they are all, it is said that brilliant. And these airplanes do not fly business executives or politicians and all. They are all full of residents of Vaikuntha, both male and female. And they all increase the beauty. And they all have forms like a swan. There's a quote in Srimad Bhagavatam. The airplanes in Vaikuntha aren't exactly like the airplanes here, but there's something like swan. And in fact, Srila Prabhupada said, what is this airplane compared to those in the spiritual planets? In fact, it is said that the associates of Lord Vishnu brought the special plane for Dhruva Maharaj and informed him that Lord Vishnu has sent this airplane for you. So this is how devotees are given importance in the spiritual world. Some disturbance? Okay. Okay. Can I continue? Srila Prabhupada also mentions all that we see are material things, and even a mind can fly an airplane without any other mechanical arrangement. The materialists cannot see such types of spiritual airplanes, nor can they imagine also about these types of airplanes. In the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a mention that how, in fact, the airplanes in all the planetary systems, like I mentioned, that demigods fly their airplanes with mantras. Siddha Loka is a planet where inhabitants can fly in the air without any machine, without any these things. So they all fly in the air without even an airplane. They don't need an airplane, they themselves fly. Ajamila, he bought an airplane that was made of gold. See, we can't even, all these airplanes that we see, they are all made of aluminum sheets. But Ajamila was fortunate enough to board an aircraft that was made of gold, and this airplane was brought by none other than the carriers of Lord Vishnu. And passing through the airways, it is said that he directly went to the abode of Lord Vishnu, the husband of the goddess of fortune. So yoga, actually we see, can do some mystic wonders, but it did not take one to the complete perfection. See, Sanjaya could see whatever was happening in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and he could narrate them to Dhritarashtra, and it is said Dhritarashtra himself was a great yogi. So certain materialistic mystic powers are possible by practicing this yoga, but they are not the ultimate. So actually it is said that the Kumaras went to the spiritual world by dint of their mystic yoga, which was actually empowered by the Lord for this particular pastime. In other words, the Vaikuntha planets there is no scarcity of anything. Everything is available in plenty. And it is mentioned that because the Vaikuntha planets are not predominated by a normal human being, everything is available in plenty. Why do we see scarcity of things in this material world? We must understand from this. Because a normal human being is nothing but full of lust, anger, greed, envy, madness, and illusion. So we find that there is a scarcity of everything that is there. But the spiritual world, there is no such scarcity because the Lord is the predominator, and the living entities don't have those defects like lust, anger, greed, etc. And everything is spiritual, and therefore they are all Sachidananda. They are eternal and blissful. Now, the Vaikuntha planets are all predominated by expansions of Krishna, who are differently named as Madhusudana, Madhava, Narayana, Pradyumna, etc. So all of them are predominated by the various expansions of the Lord. The Vaikuntha planets and the spiritual planets in the spiritual sky are inhabited by surrendered devotees who want to serve the Lord for the Lord's pleasure and not for their pleasure. See, the thing is, it is said that one can experience that happiness even in this material world. And this was realized during Ram Rajya. People say Ram Rajya. People were experiencing happiness because Lord Rama was ruling at that time in Rama Rajya. So people were very, very happy. Now, the point is that what we must understand from this is that being the living entities, being part and parcel of that Supreme Lord, we are just a minute part and parcel, that's all. And we are meant to serve the Supreme Lord. And that is the process is nothing but devotional service. Now, all these Vaikuntha planets, they are also worshipable because the personality of Godhead rules them. Now, the Lord is absolute, which means that anything that is related to the Lord is non-different from him. That means the Lord, his paraphernalia, his abode, they are all non-different from the Lord, and they are all worshipable. And they are all conscious, and they all want to serve the Lord. And in the process, they take various types of forms to satisfy the Lord. Their only motive is how to serve the Supreme Lord. And in that process, they also become happy. Now, we'll try to understand a little bit about this yoga. Now, in this particular pastime, the Lord empowered the 4 Kumaras to practice yoga to reach the spiritual sky. But that is not the ultimate. I mean, yoga can give some mystic power, but that is not the perfection of the yoga system. The Kumaras used this yoga to reach the spiritual sky. But generally, people try to do this as a breathing exercise or to achieve some material power, so forth, which is not the right understanding. So it is said that the yoga system is the Ashtanga yoga, or Siddhi, eightfold perfection yoga. By that perfection, one can become lighter than the lightest or heavier than the heaviest. So by becoming lighter than the lightest, one can travel anywhere. One can get opulences, whatever he likes. It is said the Kumaras became lighter than the lightest, and thus they passed all the planets in the material world and reached the spiritual sky. But the ultimate perfection of yoga system is not to achieve material power, any material power or any other material desire, but to reach the spiritual platform. That is the ultimate purpose of this yoga. Srila Prabhupada also mentions this purport. Very nice points Srila Prabhupada has mentioned in this purport. He says that modern mechanical space vehicles are unsuccessful because they cannot go to the highest region of this material creation, and they certainly cannot enter the spiritual sky. That means whatever aircraft or airplane or jets we might have made, or space vehicles, they all have these limitations, and they can be only within this material creation, but they cannot go to the spiritual sky. Whereas with the practice of yoga, one can not only travel to material space, but one can also surpass material space and enter the spiritual sky. And the examples are given that Dhruva Muni traveled, Amrish Maharaj went to the spiritual thing. It is said that Dhruva Muni traveled for 1 year. In 1 year, he traveled everywhere and went into the spiritual sky to meet the Supreme Personality of Godhead Narayana. Srila Prabhupada also mentions about how if one could travel by materialistic calculation of the scientists, if one could travel at the speed of light, it would take 40,000 years to reach the highest planet of this material world. So imagine how it is possible to enter the spiritual sky. But yoga system can carry anyone without limitation or difficulty. Now, one example that is given is about Karda Muni. Now, as we all know, which we'll be discussing in the further chapters in the 3rd canto, Karda Muni was a great devotee of the Lord, and he was married to Mother Devahuti. And after marriage, she served him very, very well, with a lot of love and giving respect and speaking nice, sweet words, etc. And in the process, she took a lot of austerities, and she became very, very skinny. And she, being pleased with her austerities, not only that she gave up all the lust and pride, everything, but also Karda Muni became very, very happy. So she served him like this for a long time. And in the process, she became very, very weak. Seeing her, Karda Muni got a lot of compassion on her. And he said, "Oh, daughter of Swayambhu Manu, today I am very much pleased with you because of your great devotion and most excellent loving service. You have neglected your own body to use it on my behalf. That means actually she took a lot of austerities to please her husband. And he was a great yogi. And then further it is mentioned that he was a great yogi, and he used this yogic power to produce an aerial mansion. A mansion today in the material world, nobody can afford to have even a small flat. But forget about it. Kardamuni could make a big aerial mansion, which was of about 7-story or something like that. And he was, being a great yogi, he could create that. And it was bedecked with a lot of nice, beautiful jewels. The pillars were made of precious stones and so many things. And it was full with furniture, wealth, and everything. Not only that, all the seasons were very, very pleasing. The birds were, there were bees which could make nice, beautiful sound. The palace was decorated with a lot of nice flowers and all those things. The domes were made of gold, doors were made of gold, diamond, etc. The gates were made of gold, like that. This is how the palace was created by Kardamuni. And after he created this, he asked Devahuti to take bath in Bindu Saravara, which is created by none other than Lord Vishnu himself, which can grant all the desires of human being and then mount this plane. In the sense that Devahuti had the power to see her husband whenever she wanted, whenever she desired. That was the power of this yogic power of Kardamuni. And there were thousands of maidservants who were serving Mother Devahuti within that 7-story aerial mansion. So it's difficult for us to imagine all these things, but these are mentioned in the Shastras. I'll skip a few things. And he traveled in this airplane throughout all the planets in this material world. And it is said that he surpassed even the demigods in this respect. So that is how powerful Kardamuni was. And not only that, he showed his wife the universe, which was full of wonders and all those things. And then, because he himself was a great yogi, he expanded himself into 9 forms. And in that process, he had time with his wife. And that by that, even the desire was fulfilled for union, and they gave birth to 9 daughters. So this is how Kardamuni utilized his yogic power. Now, another important point is that the transcendental happiness that one can realize in the spiritual world or in the spiritual listing, they all come under the Yogamaya or the internal potency of the Lord. And they are all blissful, not happiness. I think His Holiness Bhakti Purushottam Maharaj explained as to how what we might realize is a happiness in this material world, but what is actually existing in the spiritual world is bliss, which is much, much more than even the happiness that we might realize. The happiness that we might see for some time may go, but bliss is something that is always there by the process of serving the Lord. So all these yoga processes can give some a little bit of a materialistic power, but that is not the ultimate. The Lord himself states in Bhagavad Gita 6:47, Yoginam api sarvesham madgatena antaratmana Shraddhavan bhajate yomam same yukta tamo madaha. Of all the yogis, the one with great faith, who always abides in me, thinks of me within himself, and renders transcendent loving service to me, he is the most intimately united with me in yoga, and he is the highest of all. That is my opinion. So that means here the Lord himself explains that a yogi is one who has great faith in the Supreme Lord and always thinks of the Lord within himself and renders transcendental loving service to me. He is the most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. So the Lord is explaining that this materialistic power and all those things are nothing. Ultimately, the yoga should bring one to the point where one is able to think of the Lord within himself all the time. And in the process, one should not only think of the Lord, but also render transcendental loving service. That is the way one is most intimately united with the Supreme Lord. And Srila Prabhupada also explained that in this verse, the bhajate comes from the word bhaja, that means service. That is why when we render service to the Lord, we feel happy, because that is our natural constitutional position. And worship, the word worship is normally used for a demigod or a senior personality, something like that. We can respect a senior politician or a senior leader, but service with love and faith is meant only for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One may even avoid giving respect to a great personality, but one cannot avoid rendering service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the main understanding in this purport. There is a quote in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto, where the Lord is telling Uddhava, anyone who does not render service and neglects his duty into the primeval Lord, who is the source of all living entities, will certainly fall down from his constitutional position. That means one may even perform yoga, one may even try to see the Lord, may become successful to a certain extent or not, but ultimately one should reach a point of rendering service. Imagine if we are to do nothing within the four walls of a room, and there is nothing to see, nothing to hear, nothing to do, we will get mad. So like that, if we are not situated in our constitutional position, which is servitorship to the Supreme Lord, then the Lord will definitely not keep us in that particular form of species. And what will happen is one will fall down from his constitutional position. One may have to take even a lower species of body. And actually the whole process is very, very long. It's not that one can start practicing yoga today and become a great yogi with overnight. It's a very long process. And Srila Prabhupada explains in Bhagavad Gita that Bhakti Yoga itself can be practiced straight away, or one has to go through, the other option is one has to go to Karma Yoga, then to Jnana Yoga, then to Ashtanga Yoga, and then to Bhakti Yoga. But all these yogic practices, the culmination is Bhakti Yoga. And if they don't reach to the point of Bhakti Yoga, then they are all meaningless. They all should come to the point of Bhakti. Yoga means Bhakti Yoga, is what Srila Prabhupada explains in the Bhagavad Gita. The destination of all the other processes, ultimate destination is only Bhakti Yoga. Karma Yoga, it starts with Karma Yoga, and then we offer the results to the Lord. Karma Yoga without fruitive results is the beginning of this path. And when Karma Yoga increases in knowledge and renunciation, then one reaches the state of Jnana Yoga. Now, knowledge and renunciation, knowledge one might get, but people find it very difficult to take up the process of renunciation because they become attached to whatever they have. And when Jnana Yoga increases in meditation on the super soul by different physical processes, and the mind is on him, then it is called Ashtanga Yoga. So when one practices Jnana Yoga, which should lead one to the process of meditation on the super soul within, then it can lead one to Ashtanga Yoga. In this Kali Yuga, no one can even realize the Supreme Lord as Paramatma seated in one's heart. So this is the condition. And then when one surpasses the Ashtanga Yoga and comes to the point of Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, it is called Bhakti Yoga, or the culmination. So finally, Bhakti Yoga is the ultimate goal. But this is the other process it's a very, very long process to go through this. But one who takes up the path of Bhakti Yoga is very, very fortunate. And he is supposed to have understood and surpassed all other yogas. So this is how powerful the Bhakti Yoga is. Now, what to talk of the spiritual world, even the temples that are there within this material creation, they are all a part of the spiritual, the Vishnu temples, they are all a part of the spiritual world, and they can be, that spiritual bliss or happiness can be realized by practice of proper devotional mode. What to talk of temples, it is said that even in a home, worship of the deity in the altar is as good as the spiritual world, provided that it's a proper devotional atmosphere is cultivated and practiced. So Bhakti Yoga is the ultimate, and all other processes of yoga should lead ultimately to the process of Bhakti Yoga. Otherwise, the yogic process will not, and particularly in this Kali Yuga, due to the deteriorating condition of the living entities and the material atmosphere, one need not definitely reach to the point of Bhakti Yoga. It may be very, very rare. So that is why, if one is fortunate enough to have got association with devotees of the Lord and having had proper Shravan Kirtana process, one can reach the point of Bhakti Yoga, which is the ultimate goal of all the yogic processes. But the Lord empowers some living entities, certain living entities, for a certain purpose. For example, the Kumaras, they were all empowered by the Lord with this yogic power to reach the spiritual. This particular, so we should not think that, oh, one day I will also get this power. We may not get even a material power to reach a material planet. So we must be very, very careful and try to understand the subject matter. So with this, I come to the conclusion of the class for the day. Anybody has got any questions, comments, can ask. Any questions in today's class?
हरे कृष्णा प्रभु जी, दंडवत नाम प्रभु जी। आपने बोले थे ना एक बार की भक्तों को संगति रहना चाहिए, तो वही हमको बहुत अच्छा लगा प्रभु जी, कि वही हमारा भक्ति बढ़ेगा प्रभु जी।
शुक्रिया माता जी। आप जो बोला हिंदी में मेरे को पूरा समझ में नहीं आया, लेकिन थोड़ा सा समझ में आ गया। फिर भी
हो गया, बहुत दिन हो गया प्रभु जी। मेरा पिताजी आए थे 4 महीना पहले, तो बोले थे भक्ति की संगति रहना जरूरी है, तभी हम लोग आगे बढ़े।
संग में हम रहेंगे तो हमको भी भक्ति का इफेक्ट आएगा उसका, लेकिन कर्मी से रहेगा तो उनका इफेक्ट हमारा इसमें पड़ेगा, हमको असर पड़ेगा। इसलिए भक्तों का संग में रहना हमेशा जरूरी है।
हरे कृष्णा। थैंक यू प्रभु जी, दंडवत प्रणाम प्रभु जी।
धन्यवाद माता जी, धन्यवाद प्रणाम। Anybody else? Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Dandavat pranam.
Dandavat Prabhuji. If no other questions or comments, can I take the class as closed?
Yes, Prabhuji. We can take questions if there are any. Otherwise, we can end the session. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, Prabhuji. Looks like there are no questions, so we'll end the session. Yeah.
Thank you all very much. Grantha Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.